this video, I'm going to be testing all 4 Drakelings that were added to Ark Survival Evolved, Winter, Summer, Autumn, and Spring to see which one of them is the best. In the number 4 place is the Winter Drakeling. I'm ranking this number 4 for PvE players. If you do play PvP, I would consider this being ranked number 3 just because of the damage debuff that it has. So this Drakeling's main buff is called the Aspect of Winter, and it is plus 10% damage resistance and plus 100 insulation. Firstly, let's look at the plus 100 insulation buff. Now what I've done here is gone into one of the coldest areas in Ark, which is the Murder Snow on Ragnarok. We're just using primitive fur here. Now this is good in theory, but you can see that we are still ice cubing. If we take the Drakeling off and look at our cold resist, it's 107 with primitive fur. When we put it back on, our cold resist is 519, so it does provide more insulation, but we are still ice cubing, which means that our player's health is still slowly declining over time. If we wait some time and we don't do anything like take a freer curry or bring out a torch, our player's health gets really low, so the effect of the Drakeling here is very minimal. It just means that we can survive for just a little bit longer, but we're going to die anyway. In other less cold areas of Ark, it may be helpful, but in the long run, I don't think this is worth it. Keep watching the video because there are other Drakeling buffs that can actually help you better than this in surviving freezing cold environments. Why I rated the Winter Drakeling higher for PvP players is the plus 10% damage reduction is really its best ability. The increase in damage resistance is really helpful for the PvP meta of turret soaking. We did a small experiment here with a heavy turret, a stego with an Ascended saddle, and some cakes. You can see here with no Drakeling, our Dego is getting about 46 shots on the plates and 65 on the body. I made sure that I equipped my Drakeling with a helmet for added protection, remembering when we mount the stego that damage debuff is going to transfer to the creature, and you can see the shimmer on the creature here. When we look at the numbers here, we are taking 41 damage per bullet on the plate and 59 when we are hitting the body. So this allows more soaking of more bullets if that's your goal. So the Winter Drakeling can be very helpful for PvP players. There is one little extra bonus that the Winter Drakelings have, and that is that they act as a mini fridge. If we put some raw meat into the inventory of the Spring Drakeling here, you'll see that the spoil timer is 40 minutes, and this is pretty typical for most dinos in Ark. When we put raw meat into the inventory of the Winter Drakeling, you'll see the spoil timer is longer by about an hour. It's an hour and 40 minutes. When we put mutton in the inventory, you can see that it's just over 1 hour and 30 minutes, which is great. And in a regular dino, mutton would last just under 40 minutes as well. This is a feature I probably won't use a lot, but if you're doing a meat run, it might be helpful to store it in there just before bringing it back to base. Coming in the 3rd place is the Summer Drakeling. Now I'm ranking this number 3 for PvE players. If you play PvP, you probably want to put this at number 4. This Drakeling's power is called the Aspect of Summer, and it gives plus 10% movement speed and minus 25% CC effect duration. Now CC is crowd control. I'll explore that in just a minute, but right now let's take a look at the speed buffs that you get. To test the speed boost, we did a few experiments along this beach here. In the first race, my friend is wearing the Drakeling. I gave the 3-2-1 count to account for mic delay, so you can see here that she is gaining on me very, very quickly. The distance between us is separating over time. When we both kind of ran out of stam, she ended up being about 40 meters ahead. We then repeated the race with the Drakeling on my shoulder.
3, 2, 1, go.
You can see here that even with a little bit of a delayed start, I quickly catch my friend and then start gaining on her. When we get further down towards the beach, you can see that there is a large distance behind her. What we tested next was, does this buff apply to your mount? The speed bonus to mount seems way more significant than it does to just player running. I took off really fast here and then just put miles between my friend and I. So the speed boost for your creatures is really cool. So then we checked it on flyers because we both didn't think that the speed boost would apply to flyers. So we took our wyverns over to Red Ob, raced over to there, and you can see with the Drakling on my shoulder, I quickly start to pull away from my friend. So this speed boost does apply to flyers as well as all your other teams. The next buff that it has is the minus 25% effect duration for crowd control. Now crowd control is a term that's used in video games, is another name for attacks that stun and slow an enemy. I did some testing to see what this was. At first I thought it may be due to Dialos or Aranio slowdowns, but I didn't notice a huge difference when I went into the lava cave. What crowd control means in Ark is that it reduces the amount of time you are spent stunned when receiving an attack from, say, a Baryonyx or a Palovia where you are stunned and unable to move. Both Baryonyx and Palovia stuns last 10 seconds, so a minus 25% effect duration means that when you're stunned, it's going to be for 7.5 seconds. I actually don't think that this perk is that great. A few seconds will rarely mean the difference between life and death. You're still stunned anyway and can't fight back. It's just going to last 1 or 2 seconds less. One additional perk it has is the Nidaria stun lasts for maybe 1 or half a second less than regular, but it's enough time to get away. So although this is not particularly useful because it doesn't stop you from getting stunned, it could be helpful in some circumstances. The Summer Drakeling also has a sneaky little amazing benefit. It's not listed in any of the buffs, and that is that it will cook meat in its inventory, so you don't need to carry around a grill or a barbecue. You just place the raw meat into the inventory of the Summer Drakeling and you will see here that it cooks right away. If it kills or attacks a creature, it will already have probably most likely cooked meat in its inventory when you access it. In the number 2 position, we have the Autumn Drakeling. This has some amazing abilities that will benefit both PvE and PvP players. This Drakeling's superpower is the aspect of Autumn, which is plus 5 melee damage and plus 15 harvesting. Now, if we remember these bonuses apply to our creatures that we tamed, then this can be a really powerful Drakeling. The first way you can use your Autumn Drakeling to harvest resources is to move it from your shoulder to your hand. To do that, open up your inventory. You'll see the attack icon there. Click E on that and it will move to your hand. Once it's in your hand, approach your resource and use the breath attack. You will see that you harvest resources. We got 116 wood. We're going to use it on another tree. We got more thatch that time. It seems to alternate between getting more thatch and more wood, but you can go around, just flame up some resources and they will go into your player's inventory. You can use them on all kind of resource nodes. Here we're going to attack metal. We got 132 metal that time. What's interesting to note is we flamed the next rock and we got 787 stone. So it seems to alternate between getting this similar amount that an Anki would or a Doed would. This time again we only got more stone. We'll hit another metal node and this time we got metal and stone as well. To test the boost of harvesting, I set up a little experiment here. So I have 2 metal rocks that are near my base. This is on a server with 2.5 times harvesting rates. So I'm going to whack these 2 rocks with an Anki that I have bred and imprinted, and we have the settings set to only harvest metal. After whacking both rocks, when I looked at the total of metal I had, we had 498 metal. The next day I equipped the Autumn Drakeling. You can see it gives the buff to my Anki, and I harvested both rocks again. With the increased harvesting and increased melee, we should get more metal. When I look at my total here, we have 526 metal. This means that this time around we have 28 more metal, which means we do get more, but when you do the math on it, it's actually about 5% more, not 15. So I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. I repeated this experiment just using my player and the Ascended pickaxe in my inventory. I harvested both rocks without the Drakeling and then harvested both rocks with the Drakeling on as well. And I wanted to see what the difference was in how much metal I got. Without the Drakeling, I got 126 metal. With the Drakeling on my shoulder, I got 159 metal. So again, you do get more resources, but I don't think it is the 15%. I wanted to test with another resource, so I chopped down this tree with my hatchet, The first time I chopped it down without a Drakling and I got 99 wood. The second time I chopped it down with a Drakling and I got 94 wood, so it doesn't really make a big difference in this case. I got some other players who play on the server I am on to test as well. This one here got more stone. I think the differences with a single resource spawn might be quite small, but overall it will add up over time to more resources. It's really tricky to figure out at what point is this bonus coming from the melee and what is coming from the harvesting bonus. One thing I do know for sure is that there is an amazing use for this autumn draking that I think takes advantage of both of these things. One of the things I really wanted to test was how beneficial was the autumn drakeling for something like an element vein, both for the melee and for the harvesting buff. So I did a gamma element vein solo with my Karcher. One thing to note was then when my stacks were at 100 without the Drakeling, I was doing 2,663 damage to a stego, and for the Dilos it was 5,327. So after I successfully completed the element vein defense, I got out my Mantis and gave it a Mastercraft pick. I made sure that I harvested every mini vein on the outside before heading to the main vein. I then finished off the main vein, and then when I looked at my inventory, I had 78 total element. I had 383 shards and just over 16,000 element dust. I then repeated the gamma vein defense. This was on a different day using the same stats on the creatures that I had. One thing to note here is that the autumnal Drakeling is on the shoulder of my player and it is giving the buff to the Karcher. This means that our Karcher should be doing extra damage because of the 5% melee boost. We are now doing 5,593 damage to a Dilo and 2,796 to a Stego. This is 132 more points per bite on the Stego and 271 more points per bite against the Dilo. At the end of the defense, I got out my Mantis again. I made sure I harvested all the accessory veins on the outside, but we are using the same Mastercraft pick and the same Mantis, but this time I have the Drakeling on, giving the buff to the Mantis. After finally harvesting the main vein, I took a look at my inventory. This time I had 129 element, 309 shards, and just over 16,000 dust. This means we got 51 more element. Now this can't be accounted for by the small differences in damage when doing an element vein. This has to be the harvesting buff and the increased melee that was given to the Mantis. So for those big tribes wanting to harvest lots of element, getting yourselves an autumnal Drakeling is really, really important. And as amazing as this autumnal Drakeling seems, there are a few issues with it. Now I tested the metal harvesting with and without the autumn Drakeling for my dunk, but I tested it 3 times and every time I didn't get any more metal when I had the Drakeling on my shoulder. Is it bugged underwater? Does it not work on dunks? I can't tell. The reason I wanted to test the metal harvesting on the server I play on was I wanted to see, can I give the gift of autumn to another player that doesn't have the DLC. Now I was able to give it to my husband who was riding the Anki and it said it had the buff, but when he harvested the rocks, he didn't get any more than what I did when I had no Drakeling. So I still think there might be some fine tuning needed with the autumn Drakeling harvesting bonus. One thing I did notice is that when I had the autumn Drakeling on my creature when I was doing meat runs, I definitely got more meat. So I think it helps with the harvesting of creatures too. I did do some testing on single player settings with 1x rates, killing 5 Phiomias with and without the Drakeling. I got a very mixed bag of results. Sometimes I got more meat, sometimes I didn't. Overall, the increased melee and extra harvesting power of this Drakeling makes it really worthwhile. I am placing it at number 2 though, not number 1, because sometimes that harvesting is a little unpredictable or inconsistent. And the number 1 spot goes to the spring Drakeling. Now this Drakeling is, I think, actually insanely overpowered. I really hope they don't nerf it, but I almost feel like that might be down the pipeline. Its power is called the Aspect of Spring, and it says for plus 1% you get plus 15 health regeneration, and there is a minus 10% stamina consumption. So this means that you get very rapid health regen, and if your health is even higher, it goes faster, and while you're at it, you lose less stamina. So let me show you how amazingly powerful this Drakling is. Remember the Murder Snow and the Winter Drakling didn't save us? Let's go back there with the Spring Drakling and I can show you how good the health regen is. This temperature is still minus 40 and you can see that our cold resist is 407. I checked the buffs and we had our health regen buff, but we were still suffering from hypothermia. But our health is not going down at all. In fact, when I first tried this, I thought I'd made a mistake, so I re-logged and tried it again. When I logged back in, my health was going down because I was freezing to death. Then I picked up my Spring Drakling again, and what I noticed is, when I checked my health, I was actually healing. My health was going up, even though I still had hypothermia. So the healing capacity of this Spring Drakling is amazing. You can see here that we got back up to full health, which is incredible. The next thing I wanted to do was to push the limits of the Spring Drakling healing a little further. So I took it to another environment that causes a lot of health destruction over time, and that is the Swamp Cave on the island map. Normally, in order to survive the swamp cave, you need to have a gas mask on, or you need a combination of scuba and ghillie armor. I entered the cave on a baryonyx and a full ghillie suit. No scuba, no gas mask. You can see I'm getting the tick damage from the poison gas, and my health goes down, but you can see with the Spring Drakling, it is rapidly going up. I'm actually able to survive in this cave. You can see the health regen as I'm standing here taking damage from the gas. I took off all armor except for the shoes, and I also went into the cave with cloth armor, but the loss of health is too fast to overcome the effect of the healing of the Drakling. So you do need to have ghillie for this cave. This is a huge win in itself because ghillie armor unlocks at level 33, while scuba and gas masks are level 81 and 85. Ghillie can also be repaired in your inventory, so if it's broken by Arthroplura, you'll be okay. This means that at level 33, if you have a good creature, you could easily go into this cave and get the artifact. Seeing how amazing it was for player health, I wanted to test how it would do at rapid healing of my creatures. I grabbed my Spring Drakling and my Wyvern, and I headed to the Wyvern Trench and the Wyvern Cave. Stats wise, I had a mid-range set of ghillie on. This is a pretty decent wyvern. It's been bred and imprinted with a bunch of other fire wyverns. So you can see here there are a bunch of wyverns on us. I have pretty good damage on this wyvern, but we are getting lit up here. And you can see our health is maintaining at pretty much full health. I decided to take it up a notch and head into the Wyvern Cave and get into some fights in there. I took an egg and just sat there seeing what heat would come my way. We have a bunch of poison wyverns and I'm just sitting in the poison there. You can see that my wyvern's health is okay. It's at about 3/4, but my player health is down to about 1/4. And I did time it, and I would say in less than 2 minutes, my player health was actually back to full, and about another minute after that, the wyvern's health went back to full as well. I then wanted to push the test a little further, so there was a alpha fire wyvern in the cave. It's only a level 25, but I wanted to see when fighting it how the healing power of the Drakling went. You can see here that it can't use its element breath on us, so we can only take damage from its bite attacks, which are not super strong, but you can see that although I am here just tanking the damage, it's really not enough. You can see that our wyvern remains at almost full health, and the alpha goes down without issue. It may be different if it's say a 180 alpha, but really we took minimal or no damage during that fight. I really wanted to test its power some more, so I went to another really powerful creature in Ark, which is the Titanosaur. This thing has huge health, but when it does hit you, it takes a massive amount of damage out. You can see just with one hit there, we lost almost about 1/4 of our health. This fight took a really long time. I kept it slow, so once I got hit, I would go heal for a little bit, come back to it. But I was able to take down a Titanosaur with a wyvern without dying, but this was way easier than I thought it would be. I wanted to push this Drakling's power as far as I could, so it is now time for the ultimate test. I have a tamed Giga here. It was a pre-tame level 140. We pumped about 35 points into melee. We have a ramshackle Giga saddle as well equipped to it. I would never, ever, ever, ever recommend taking on a wild Giga with a tamed Giga. I would do it with a bred Giga that had a good saddle, that had been well bred and imprinted all the way, but never with a random tame one against the wild, because their base health is 80k no matter the level here. So I decided, can the Drakeling's healing overcome the Giga's bleed, and we could be able to take down a wild Giga. Now looking at it here, we are taking a lot of damage. We're at about half health. It's taking a beating too as well. It's pretty bloody, and we're both pretty bloody at this point. I feel like my health is a little bit more down, but we failed. This is the, I guess, one weak spot of the Spring Drakeling, which is that it cannot beat a wild Giga with a tamed Giga. It was close. You could see how bloody that Giga was. So we did push it to its max right here. One thing to note, that each Drakeling's buff is in no way affected by the level of the Drakeling. The buff will be the same no matter if you tame a level 20 or a level 150. It is, however, important to make sure that you are taming high level Drakelings. This is because the higher level your Drakeling is, the more loot you will get from its loot chests. And this is because of the Draconic knowledge buff that is available in all types of Drakelings. What this means is when you have a Drakeling equipped, it will gain a percentage of your experience for all the things that you do in game, such as harvesting, crafting, building, and killing creatures. That experience stays stored to your Drakeling, and you can see it in the bottom right hand HUD. As you can see for the Drakeling on my shoulder, the XP bar went up from 58 to 70. The max amount of experience you can have stored is 30,000. Once you hit 30,000, that amount is maxed out and you can't gain any more. But what you can do is transfer that experience to a creature. To pass the experience onto your creature, you'll need to move the Drakeling from your shoulder to your hand. To move it from your shoulder to your hand, you'll need to access the inventory and you'll see this Drakeling icon. What you want to do is hit consume or E on the keyboard to move it from your shoulder to your hand. Once it's in your hand, you have a variation of attacks. You can use a breath attack. To do that, hit your secondary key again. There are 3 different options with this. If you want to scroll through them on a keyboard, you need to hit R, and on an Xbox controller, hit RB and X. The next option is to give the buff gift to another player. You can see me doing that to my husband on the Anki here. If you hit R again, then you move to stored experience, and then you can zap that onto another creature. One thing to note is that you cannot do it to another Drakeling. I definitely tried, but it didn't work. You definitely want to wait until you have 30,000 experience stored, because what you'll do here is you'll see a prompt, you hand the experience over to the creature, and it also gets you a Dragon Horde key. Check your inventory and you will see here that you have an Ascendant Dragon Horde key. These Horde keys give you access to some of the best loot in the entire game. The minimum level of experience you can transfer to get a Horde key is 5,000, but you'll get a lower tiered chest. You can see I have 17,000 XP stored here. When I transfer it to the Pyromane and check my inventory, we ended up with a Journeyman chest key. Just to note that if you cryo your Drakeling, it won't lose any of the XP it had stored inside of it. If you're looking at ways to get to 30,000 experience really quickly, some of the best things that you can do is kill wyverns. That gets your XP up pretty good. Also, killing alpha creatures will do that as well. When I killed a Titanosaur, I got just around 9,000 XP as a bonus for doing that. The hands down best way to farm experience to get Dragon Horde keys though is to do the purple or legendary OSDs on the extinction map. The reason for this is that the level of these creatures is incredibly high that are attacking the OSD. Lots of creatures that give high levels of experience, including wyverns, and the best creature of all during this is the enraged tech rexes, those sparkly red tech rexes. If you kill one of them, you will instantly get 30,000 points. Once you hit the 30,000 XP, it's a little tricky. You have to get off your creature, cycle through, and then give the experience to your creature to get the key. So you want to make sure you do that at a good break in the combat, or have a friend protecting you while you do it. Sometimes when you try to do this, it will say stored experience, say 64%. This means you are on a cooldown and you cannot transfer the experience yet. There is actually a 5-minute cooldown between transfers, so you need to wait until it reaches 100%. Then you are able to give it the experience and get your Dragon Horde key. After doing about 9 or 10 rounds of the OSD drop, I was able to get 7 Ascendant Dragon Horde keys. To get them to show up, you hit E to consume and then they will start to show up on your map. The one issue with doing them on Extinction is they do tend to be in the artifact caves, so again you want to bring a powerful mount like a Karcher when going to seek them out. On other maps like Ragnarok, I've found that they're just more out in the open world. I wanted to give some tips on searching for the Dragon Horde key chests. They will appear on a HUD as a blue icon. When you get about 300 meters to them, be very, very careful. You want to creep up really, really slowly and then watch for the color change on the icon. As soon as it goes from blue to green, you want to stop exactly what you're doing and not move any further. Just like I did right here, you can see that 2 of them went from blue to green. This means the Dragon Chest Horde crates will spawn right in front of you. Here you can see I can easily access them off the back of my Karcher without getting into too much trouble or danger. When I first started doing this, I made the mistake of thinking it was a set waypoint and flying directly to it. And you can see here that I flew over. I couldn't see the chest. I couldn't see where it spawned. It took me quite a few minutes to find it. And then eventually I turned around, searched the entire area, and found the chest by the creek. So as soon as it goes to green, you want to make sure that you stop and then find the chest. The chests do have a health bar and you can damage them from damage from weapons or your creature. So I often recommend a buddy system, especially for PvE, to make sure that your friends can maybe attack creatures in the area while you get your chest safely. Remember when I said you want high level Drakelings? If you look here at the low levels, we're getting on average about 6 to 7 pieces of loot per crate. But when we look at the high level ones, we're getting around 8 to 9 pieces of loot per crate. So whatever you do, get your Drakelings tamed up, you can breed them together. And one thing to note is that you can breed the different types of Drakelings together to combine your stats. You don't have to breed like with like. The Drakelings that are born from the breeding either have a chance of being the same type as one of the parents. So if you breed a winter with an autumn, the baby has a chance of either being an autumn one or a winter one. Not only do all Drakelings have the Draconic knowledge buff, they also have some other really cool features. One that I think is super duper handy is the slow fall mode. What you need to do is hold down R while it's on your shoulder, then head over to the Spring Drakeling. That opens another radial menu and then you can enable slow fall. On the right hand side of your screen, about halfway up, you will see a little parachute icon. This means that the slow fall is enabled. It's not as slow as a parachute, but it means that you can usually jump without taking too much fall damage. The next ability all Drakelings have is the native Biome Boost. This boost increases the experience that you gain in that biome, and it also increases the loot quality by 10%. If you remain in the biome that is home to the Drakeling, the buff will always be active. If you remain in the biome but the Drakeling leaves your shoulder, you end up with a 3-hour cooldown on this buff. If you have the Drakeling on your shoulder and you leave the Drakeling's home biome, then you end up with a 3-hour cooldown on this buff being active, and you can see the little countdown in the bottom right of your screen. The Winter Drakeling's home biome is the snow areas of Ragnarok and the center, as well as the snow dome on the Extinction map. The Spring Drakeling's home biome is the highlands on Ragnarok, as well as the city on Extinction and the jungle on the center map. The Autumn Drakeling's home biome is the redwoods on Ragnarok and the center, and you'll also find them in the sunken forest on the Extinction map. The Summer Drakeling's home biome is the desert part of Ragnarok, as well as the desert dome in the Extinction map, and you'll also find them in the swamp on the center map. They are also the only Drakeling that will spawn on Scorched Earth. I hope you found the information in this video helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe for more, or you can click on this video right here, and in the comments, let me know which is your favorite type of Drakeling.